Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick video about the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. You heard correct. I'm actually covering a phone from 2018 here in 2021. And the reason is because tomorrow is D-Day for my trade-in with Samsung towards my Z Fold 3. Now, Samsung's offer, very solid, $450 for a phone that again dates back to 2018. But I will say that even here in 2021, this phone is competent and completely relevant. It has every feature you could possibly want. Yes, it doesn't have triple cameras, but two 12-megapixel cameras, both wide and telephoto, that are still competent and functional and do exactly what they should. Fingerprint scanner. This was also the last device in Samsung's Note lineup to have the good old headphone jack, which some of you value and some of you don't care. I get it. It's also one of the last devices to have the S Pen on the right side of the device. Yes, the 10th gen did have it, but the Note 20 Ultra relocated it to the left side in order to make room for the camera hump or bump, whatever you'd like to call it. It's also the last Note to have the power button on the right side, which is where I prefer it as a righty using my thumb. It makes sense. And it has SD card storage expandability. Now, the processor is several years old, obviously, but still totally capable. And then the fact that this is the 512 gig variant, well, that means I also have 8 gigs of RAM besides the half terabyte of internal storage. So that still makes it pretty much as good, I feel like, as most phones on the market, if not better than many of them. And with a 4,000 milliamp hour battery and a 6.5-inch display, it's still right up there with every flagship on Earth. Now, who would have thought that would have been the case so many years later? So that's where my problem begins to exist here with giving it up in favor of $450 off of my Z Fold 3. Now, security patches are going to come to an end. It's only getting quarterly updates now. And that's really the reason to look at a device like this and say, should I keep it? And part of this video is that I'm struggling with the decision, and I'm curious what all of you, my subs, what you think about the Note 9, specifically in the half terabyte, 8 gig of RAM capacity that I have here. It's still in pretty clean condition outside of the fingerprints that I've put on it. You know, I've got a few scuffs, but the screen is working perfectly well. There's no burn-in, and it's just a really clean device, again, outside of the fingerprints. I think the ergonomics and the form factor actually in some ways are better than the Note 20 Ultra. I think the 6.4-inch display was plenty large. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the newer versions. I mean, I think the Note 10 and 10 Plus really set the bar in terms of aesthetics because they still also had a flush camera assembly, which obviously went away with the Note 20 Ultra. I'm not a fan of the giant camera hump/bump, so that's another reason I like what was done here. Samsung really cleaned it up compared to the Z Fold 2 that I still own. And look, the Z Fold 3 is my daily driver. There's baby Barkley, not a baby anymore at all. Phenomenal device, and there's no question it is going to be my daily driver, especially now that we have water resistance, and finally, an S Pen that actually pockets. Granted, this case is awful. Samsung major miss on this, even though they did a fantastic job with the device. Third-party manufacturers are going to have a field day with basically making a case that does this proper. And that's a video for another time. But again, I'm just curious what all of you think about a phone like this. I mean, if Samsung offered us the ability, which they're not going to pay to get updates in order to keep a phone like this functional, and it's food for thought for manufacturers, I think, because sometimes I do think that they would benefit from this. Would you pay to get updates to a phone like this as opposed to trading it in? I know that if this was my only device and Samsung continued to support it from a software level, I would keep on trucking with this thing. Now, I'm not saying it in any way, shape, or form replaces the experience I get out of the Z Fold 3. It doesn't. But to have this as a backup, there's a reason I'm having hesitation with regard to that $450 trade-in value. Now, the trade-in value is hefty. Not really for the half terabyte, as many of you already know. Sammy does not show any favoritism to larger capacities. It's just like buying a car and outfitting it with all the extras. When you go to resell that car, that value is worthless. Well, the same applies to phones. You know, if you purchase the larger storage capacity, like I generally do, it's on you, or in this case, on me. You're not going to see that in resale. However, or trade-in value. They don't have separate values, and it's too bad because Samsung should. Because when it comes to purchasing this, believe it or not, this phone right now is still selling for around $600 new, which, considering again it's from 2018, is amazing. But when you take into account that this is, in my opinion, like the forefather of modern Notes, even though the Note seems to be gone, and that's another reason I'm kind of clinging to it, it really has shaped the landscape. I mean, the Bluetooth S Pen with shutter control with the camera system, that was first here. Again, the large battery, which has now become standard, the large screen size, which maybe has gotten out of hand at 6.9 inches in the Note 20 Ultra. The cameras are still great. They're not as good as what's out now, but certainly more than enough. 4K 60 video is a go on this, which is still the standard unless you have a device that supports 8K. I mean, even this phone doesn't, which is on Samsung, but I don't really care. So again, the question becomes, is it time for me to send this in tomorrow? And if I don't, it'll be $450 less in my pocket. But I'm just wondering if this is a great backup to keep. And I want to know what all of you think. I mean, look, I review a lot of electronics, a lot of hardware, and all of it is specific to my personal interests. And those of you that subscribe, obviously we think alike. We have similar taste. We look for high-end hardware, sometimes affordable, inexpensive stuff that solves simple problems that manufacturers don't tend to do themselves. But again, this, I feel like, was the beginning of what now is the foundation for the best Android hardware on the market and Samsung's success in the industry. And the only reason the Note isn't at the forefront anymore is because, well, now we have folding devices like this, which are phenomenal and completely change the game. If you don't want this large form factor, you can go with something like a Flip. And if you don't want the Flip, you know, there are still regular flagship phones for you. So Samsung has made sure to accommodate everyone. So again, this is more about me thinking that I was absolutely going to send this in for the $450 off. And now I'm wondering, you know, is it good to have this in my repertoire, even if I still have, you know, the good old Galaxy Z Fold 2, which I have right here, even if I still have this guy, you know, which does have the camera bump. Again, I'm glad they addressed this. Another video for another time. It wasn't awful, but it certainly could have been improved. And yeah, I mean, Samsung hasn't really come up with much faster charging. This also, of course, has wireless charging. And because the screen is significantly smaller than a lot of the devices out there, the battery life was always solid. This phone has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, again, 4,000 in here. It's got an extra camera, obviously, on the back, and also on the interior with the under-screen display, or under-screen camera, under-display camera. But yeah, the tech here is still really compelling, even so many years after its original launch. So again, I'm struggling with the choice. I'm curious what all of you have to say about whether or not you think it's worth dumping it for $450. Either way, I'm going to have to make a decision sometime tomorrow, which is September 11th, because after that, I will be stuck with this, which wouldn't be the end of the world to me at all. I think it's a great backup device, but I do already have a Z Fold 2, which I'm absolutely not giving up. That's already a phenomenal backup device, but there is something nice about having an IP68 rating, which this doesn't have, or the Z Fold 2. So again, this video is more about what all of you have to say for a change. You're going to influence me. How do you like that? I would say any questions or comments, but questions I don't think you'll really have. Comments, hopefully you do. And as usual, you know, hit that like button and feel free to subscribe. And please stay safe. Later.